Hello, this is Amin, and you are watching session 47 of ASP.NET Core MVC tutorial. In this session, we are going to talk Entity Framework Core, entity relationship, and we are going to talk about relationship between entity of domain classes. We have generally three types of relationship. The first one is 1 to 0 or 1, and the second one is 1 to many, and the third one is many to many. In the 1 to 0 or 1 to 1 relationship, you can imagine an actor, and each actor has one gender. For example, it could be a man or a woman. If you look at actor entity, you can see I have ID as a primary key. Also, I have a gender ID, which is foreign key. A foreign key should be a primary key in the other entity or other table. In this scenario, I want to make a relation between actor and gender. That's why ID of gender, which is primary key, has relation with actor, which is gender ID. And the second one is one to many. You can imagine an actor, and each actor can win several awards, and that's why it has a relation one to many between actor and award. And also we have the third one, many to many. Each actor can play a role in several movies, and each movie can have several actors. That's why in this situation, movie ID is a foreign key in actor table and in actor entity, which is the primary key of movie. And in the movie table and entity, we have actor ID, which is a foreign key, and this is connected to ID of actor. Let's talk more about this relationship between the entities and implement the relationship between the entities and then migrate it to the database. This is the example of 1 to 0 or 1 relationship between actor and gender entity. If you look at actor class, which is a domain class, we have ID and full name of actor, and also in the actor entity we have gender ID, and as long as we decorate gender ID to required data annotation, automatically we convert this relation one to one, because gender ID is a required field and we should fill it when we want to submit an actor data. And next I need to add another property, which would be a virtual property, and its type should be the entity that I want to be connected to this entity, which is in this example gender. And as you can see, I decorate this property with foreign key data annotation, and with name of, I mentioned the name of the foreign key. And this is the property that I should have in actor, and also inside the other entity, which is gender in this example, I should have an ID, which would be a key, and the key is the value that I will store inside the actor, and I can have the rest of property that I need inside that entity, which in this example is gender type. Also, I need to add another virtual property, which its type is the type of the entity that would be connected to this one. And in this example, it is actor. And as you can see, I add a virtual property of actor inside the gender. In this way, I connect these two entities with each other, and now I have one-to-one relation between these two entities. The next example is one-to-many relationship, and as I mentioned, each actor can win several awards. That's why inside the award entity, I have four properties. The first one is the ID of award, and the second one is the award name, and the third one is the actor ID, which is the foreign key inside the award, and it is the primary key inside the actor entity. And after that, as I mentioned earlier, I decorate property of actor with the foreign key, and with name of, I mentioned the name of the foreign key, and virtually I add actor. But this time inside the actor entity, I should use I collection of awards. If you remember, in one-to-one or one-to-zero relationship, I add a virtual property of each entity to each other, and I didn't use I collection. But when I want to make a one-to-many relationship, I should use I collection of the respective entity to the entity which contain the primary key, and in this example inside the actor I should use I collection of award for making this relation. The third situation is many to many. You imagine each actor can play role in several movies, and each movie has several actors. That's why we should create a many-to-many relationship between these two entities. That's why if you look at the actor and movie, I just add I collection of respective entity to each other to make a many-to-many relationship. And as you can see, inside the actor entity, I add a public virtual I collection of movie, and I mention its name as movies. And also inside the movie entity, I add public virtual I collection of actor, and I call it actors. But in this case, when I migrate the domain class to the database, automatically a third entity would be created, which would be actor movie, and it has two foreign key which contains the ID of movie and the ID of the actors. And with this third entity, I make a relationship. And when I migrate this database, you can see the third table would be created automatically. I already implemented this example inside a project. Let's flip to Visual Studio and look at the codes that I have already created for this relationship between the entities. As you can see, I have actor entity which has ID and full name, and also as I explained inside the slides, I have gender ID which is foreign key, and I decorated with required data annotation. That's why it will create a one-to-one relation between actor and gender entity. And in the next line, I decorated gender property with foreign key and name of, and I mentioned the name of the foreign key that I have. And also inside the gender, as you can see, I just add virtually actor as a property of a gender entity. Also, I have relation between actor and awards. As you can see, I have award entity here. It has ID, award name, and also actor ID as a foreign key inside the award entity. And actor ID is a foreign key. That's why I decorated the property of actor with foreign key and name of the foreign key that I want to have, which is actor ID. And also inside actor ID, as its relation is one-to-many between award and actors, I add I collection of award inside the actor entity, and its name is awards. And also I have a relation between actor and movie And as you can see, I have a virtual eye collection of movie inside the actor, and inside the movie I have ID of the movie and movie name, and also a virtual eye collection of actor, which I call it actors as a property of movie. But this way I can make a relation between my entities. Let's migrate this example to the database. I set the connection string and do the required steps to connect to database, which I explained earlier. Just here, I use add migration and I call it initDB as initialization of database. Migration files is created without any error, and as you can see inside this class, which is created by add migration command, you can see I have the primary key and foreign key of the entities that I mentioned earlier. Let's update the database to create the database inside the SQL server. Database is created. Let's see what I have as long as I migrated these domain classes to the database. I create the database inside the SQL server, and inside the database you can see I have EF core relationship, which is the name of database inside my connection string. And as you can see, I have 5 tables instead of 4 tables because I have just 4 entities, but as I have one many-to-many relationship, it automatically creates another table for connecting these 2 tables to each other, which are movies and actors. If you look at actors and columns of actors, you can see I have ID, which is primary key and not null. It means I cannot make it empty, and full name, and also gender ID, which is foreign key. And if you look at the gender database inside the columns, you can see I have just one primary key, which is ID and gender type. And also, if I want to check the relation between actors and awards, if I open the award table, you can see I have ID, award name, and inside the award, I have actor ID as a foreign key, which is connect of awards to actors. Then for reviewing many-to-many relation between actor and movie, we can check the actor and movie entity as well. You can see I just have one ID as a primary key and movie name here, and also inside the actor I have ID, full name, and gender ID, because both foreign key are created inside another entity, which is actor movie. And if you look at the columns of actor movie, it just has 2 primary key foreign key, which store movie ID and actor ID, and it makes many-to-many relation between movie and actors entities. Now I want to implement a relationship between the entities inside the project that I have been working so far throughout this tutorial, and make a relation between categories and cost. And also I upload this project for your reference to my GitHub, and you can find the link of my GitHub in description of this video for your reference. Now this is the project that I have been working so far throughout this tutorial. In this session I want to clean up this project because I've already added several unnecessary classes, methods, and views to this project to explain the previous topic that I explained in the previous sessions. And from this session, I start the CRUD operation topic and relation between the entities, and we'll start the CRUD operation and work with database more. That's why first I start the cleanup. Before I clean up the project, I want to drop the database that I created in MySQL in previous session. That's why I use drop database command. And here I have some options for dropping cost DB, and I use A to answer yes to all the question. And my database is dropped from MySQL. And also I want to remove the migration that I use for MySQL. That's why I can use remove migration to remove the migration that I used for creating and migrating my domain classes to database. Then I want to switch to SQL Server as a database engine. That's why I change the startup file, and here I change it to use SQL Server, and also I copy the connection string that I created for SQL Server, and I replace it here. Then I want to clean up the project and remove the part that I created just to explain some features of ASP.NET Core. That's why for example, I remove custom HTML helper, which I don't need it in the upcoming session. And also this, my views, and also all the views that I created earlier. And also I don't need this view as well, and display templates and editor templates as well, and I don't need this partial view. Just I keep the view start and view import and main layout. And also inside the view imports, I temporarily disable this line because I want to remove all the view models as well. Also, I don't need payment method and its static repository because I want to make payment method as an enum. And inside the controller, I remove all the action methods. And I'm going to a static cost repository, and I remove this static data because I want to simplify the domain classes and domain models to explain relationship between the entities inside the project that I have. Now I also create one more class here, and I call it payment method. It would be enum, and I mention the payment method that I have, for example, cash, debit, and credit. Then I'm going to category, and inside the category, I change this category to integer, and I'm going to cost and remove the data annotation that I added earlier and add the data annotation that I want for creating and migrating the database. For time being, I remove this property as well. And also I change payment method from int to payment method, which is enum class. And here I change this property name to registered date, and I add key data annotation for ID, and for amount, as it is decimal, I should mention the type of this decimal and how many decimal I need for this property. I use column data annotation, which is inside data annotation scheme. I add the namespace, and here you can see I would have a decimal with two digit of decimal. And also I want to make some property mandatory by adding required data annotation to that property, which I explained earlier in previous sessions. And registered should be required. Comment can be empty. I just add the max length for this property, and I use 150 characters for comment. And next I should modify a category property, and as it would be my foreign key and my relation between cost entity and category entity, its type should be equal category ID, and as I changed the category ID to integer, it should be integer, and I make it mandatory to create one-to-one relationship, and then I should add a virtual property of category, and it should be decorated with foreign key, and I use name of and mention the name of foreign key, which is category, and then I add a virtual property with type of category. And as you can see, I change it to virtual property, and also its type should be category, and I change its name to category as well. And then I'm going to category, and inside the category, as I mentioned earlier, I need to add a virtual property of cost, and as you can see, I make this property virtual, and its type should be cost, and I change its name to cost. I save all the changes with pressing Ctrl Shift and S. Let's clean the solution and build the solution again to find whether I have any errors or not. You can see I have 3 errors, which is related to the part that I already deleted. Here I added view models namespace, which I removed it for time being. And the next one is related to the interface and the static repository of iPayment, which I deleted earlier, and I created an enum class for this purpose. Let me save it and build the project again. This time project, as you can see, built successfully, and I'm going to package manager console and use add migration command to start migration this entity to database. And also I call this migration initdb because this is the initialization of the database. The command is run successfully and the class is created, which will create a database inside SQL Server. And now I can migrate this migration to database with update database command. And my database is created successfully. I'm going to SQL Server Object Explorer. And here is the SQL Server that I have. You can see I have CostDB which is created now with the update command. And inside the tables, you can see I have category and cost. And if you look at cost columns, you can see I have ID as a primary key and amount which is required, and it should be filled in the at the moment of the data registration, registered data, and comment, and category ID, which is foreign key, and it connect cost entity to category entity, and payment method, which is int and cannot be null. And if you look at category and its column, you can see ID is a primary key. Category name is another property which shouldn't be null. Description can be null, and active cannot be null. And in this session, we reviewed with each other how we can make relation between the entities in Entity Framework Core, and we created a relation between cost and category entity. In this session, we reviewed the relation between the entities, and I described how you can create the relation between the entities with Entity Framework Core. Thank you for watching this session and being with us. Don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media channels. Once more, thank you for being with us.